interview recently what would be on my rider. And one of the things that I said was, well, I had never heard what anybody else has on theirs, like roughly. And
like
I know it's like different types
M&Ms.
of foods and stuff. Right, but other things too, like hummus or like, you know, things that you want in the green room that maybe wouldn't be there, but would be like sustaining food, energy-wise. But I said, one of the things I said was thyme.
Like,
as for thyme on my
like not
rider.
The spice. Like rosemary,
Not the
thyme.
herb. No, not the herb. No, I
You
asked.
put thyme on your rider?
Well, I don't have a rider yet because no one's asked me to go on tour yet. But in my hypothetical future rider, I put time, meaning like time by myself. Like I require, like, let's say it's like even 30 minutes, like 30 minutes in the day where it's just my time to do, that's not part of my, rising routine, but just like my time. Either like meditate or just not be asked anything, to ground down, recharge, reset.
I feel like I need like 5 hours minimum.
Well, same, but if I'm just trying to be helpful with the function of a whole tour, I have a feeling I probably can't have 5 hours of alone time, especially when most of it is on
Guys, you will
a
see me
bus.
on stage. That's it.
That's it. But no, really, I really thrive off of time by myself to recharge. So that is going to have to happen on tour.
More naturally introverted or extroverted?
I used to always answer this question immediately with extroverted because I am. But the more I know myself, the more I realize, but I really only recharge when I'm by myself, which makes me think maybe those are like introverted qualities. Part of me thinks that we're all both of them.
Yeah, it's definitely
We're
a
all
sliding
both
scale.
of them, but I think like I used to be more towards like just the extroverted side. Now I feel like I'm more in the middle, if there is a sliding scale.
I think there's definitely a sliding scale.
Because
I think there's definitely, that's a terrible
people-wise,
statement.
Like people-wise, what did you say? I wasn't listening.
I said, I think there's definitely, which means nothing.
Right, that doesn't.
Continue. We didn't need to stop the cut.
No, I did because I realized I wasn't listening.
See, that's why you're a genius though, is because you're one of the most self-aware people I've ever met, who's like in tune with everything going on. Like if at a moment, like something as simple as I'm not listening or not being present, like you catch yourself so quickly. Whereas like, I mean, I think I've just had to work on that a lot in my life, but you naturally, I mean, I know you've worked on it as well quite a bit, but being that self-aware is really, really cool. I always look up to you with that.
Thanks, friend.
Yeah.
It is, I am pretty like naturally in the moment. I think a lot of that stems from growing up like with my mom. She was so in the present moment and like loved to be in the moment, like have the right song with the right tea playing and like just have like, she's like a vibe queen before the word vibe was probably popular, or maybe it was and then it went away and then it came back. But anywho, I think maybe some of it stems from that, like the setting of the house that I grew up in was just like, be here now. And I was always like running around and doing stuff, but like it was the kind of like rituals that my mom just did naturally. I think very much so. What is very much so? I think that the rituals my mom did naturally just affected me in a positive way.
But when I was a kid, I didn't really appreciate it because it was always just there. Like the smell of the house. Like my mom would make it smell a certain way. She would light it a certain way. Always like candles. She would have art up, like certain
Same
type
with
of
my mom.
music.
Yes.
She would put on, like if it was like St. Patrick's Day, she would be playing Celtic music.
Yes.
Like, whatever
Yes.
it was. And I was like, man, it really puts you into this environment. And I want to do more of that.
And puts you into an environment where you are present, in the present moment.
Yeah, it sucks you right in.
Right, and whether it's because it's like a holiday or just it's her setting the space. That's what my mom did too. Not necessarily like themed holidays, but just setting a space.
I wonder I don't know this, but I wonder if, okay, so you have like the 4 elements, and in every like room or setting, it's said to like, well, if you have the 4 elements balanced in that room, like you feel the most present. And then even if you go
True.
someplace like Disneyland, it's like there's always the 4 elements everywhere you go, and there's always your 5 senses being touched everywhere you go. And it's like, it's a way to make you so present. And I wonder, like, even as it relates to the 4 elements, like my mom would have running water, candles lit. There's definitely air in the room. Or else we wouldn't be here. We're walking on earth.
Arguably, the necessity element.
The necessities were met. I don't know where I was going with that at all. But I had like an inkling of a thought, and then I was like,
I do, or I might. I think just that is part of being present, perhaps, is either setting the space in a balanced way or being in a space that is already balanced and it appearing to you greater.
Yeah. Because it's almost like maybe it's
like,
subconsciously.
Look at this space.
Yo, honestly.
Hi, Moon.
Little Luna.
But back to your introvert extrovert, just because I never fully finished that thought. I don't necessarily have. I think as I get older, the more I realize for me to be my best extrovert, I need to spend time in a introverted manner.
I thought that I was extroverted. Well, maybe I was for a long time as a kid.
Also
and then
true.
as soon as I got, I guess it's more self-aware, but like self-aware in a sort of shadow side of self-awareness, where then I started to be like, I started to get really, really introverted. And I even took like the what's the test? You're like ENF.
There's a few. Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Were you ENFJ? That's what I was when I did it. Oh wait, you probably wouldn't be if you were in that season of life taking a test.
One was I think actually one was ENFJ, but then the other one was like INFP, I think.
I should redo that test with where I'm at right now.
We should both do it.
We should. Let's do it.
Okay. I had a dream last night.
Let's hear it.
It was about
Our
hanging
friendship.
out today. But it was really, because it was like it's fuzzy, but like this word came so clear in my mind, and it was, well, it wasn't, it was a series of words, not just one word. It was a sentence, is I think what they call them. It was a conversation can save the world. And I was like, whoa. And then there was the counter to that though. And it felt like it was like a group of thoughts thinking to me, like in the dream, like that was like the feeling of it. It was like a conversation can save the world. And also a conversation or the lack of conversation can damn the world. And I was like, I woke up like in the middle of the night just like, oh my gosh. Because the idea that like a conversation can save the world, it's like, yeah, like if we actually speak our truth and be our authentic selves like in the moment, like really that can save the world. But then you see now in kind of in some ways it's like there's not largely encouraged to have conversations, especially when it's something that someone else may disagree with, or there's some like, you know, polarizing topic. It's like, yo, we gotta have conversations.
But it's intense sometimes.
Yeah.
To not put yourself out there, because I do think as in the age of the internet, it's actually pretty easy to put yourself out there. But to be face to face and you coming from one side, let's say, and me coming from the other side, that can be an intense feeling. Or maybe I'm just speaking from myself. To not even be confident, but be settled enough in yourself and know yourself enough that you can hold that conversation.
Yeah.
And you can like see where the other person is coming from. Even if at the end of the day you walk away and you're like, yeah, that's still not what I'm gonna do or the choice I'm gonna make.
Of course.
But I see them and I understand where they're coming from.
And I think the goal is like, let me genuinely try to understand where you're coming from, even if I don't see that or hold that perspective right now. And I think it's like, oftentimes we as humans just like, this is my mind, this is made up, I feel this way.
Right, but I mean, I think that is, in one way, part of our nature, to latch on, thank you, to something because that gives you that sense of security.
Right.
This is what it is, this is who I am.
Right.
It's not bending
Yeah.
or flowing. But yeah, that could heal the world if we, everyone, but it starts with yourself, can have conversations in that manner.
Yeah. It's like, if
where you're
I'm
like
wrong,
really seeking to understand the other person.
yes, exactly. Like actually listening to the person. Like, I mean, even earlier, it was like, hold on, let me listen. Like, and see where you're coming from. Because also, like, when you're able to have that conversation, if we're talking and I'm wrong about something, I want to know that I'm wrong. Because if you just have your beliefs and you don't talk about it, it's like, you're never going to know you're wrong. I'm wrong so much.
Yeah, same.
And I think that's like part of what we're going through in the world is like, we just got to have open conversations. I'm panting.
Yeah.
I have a question.
I have a response.
I hope so. Do you think that people are inherently good?
Yes.
Why?
Well, yes, and.
Okay.
I think we all have, like, what is good or bad, but we are
Ooh.
all positive and we are also all negative. We are all the sun and we are the moon. I think that we are, as far as like moving through life goes, I think we have a purpose. So then that makes me conclude that we are inherently good. We're here for a reason. We're not just here. Well, maybe we're just here because we just landed here or something. But I don't think we're here for destruction. I think that we're here for peace. Even like people talking about heaven, like creating heaven on earth, now, here, right now, like in your lifetime while you're living. I'm not a psychologist, but I think that if everyone within their childhood was treated with love and empathy and compassion, then we would just continue to grow into that as adults. And our negative self or our shadow self is real, and you can choose to operate out of that side. But I don't think that means we're inherently bad.
Right.
I think that if anything, like I've learned a ton from my shadow self of how destructive I could be as a person if I chose that. And maybe that's like a, you know, like a daily choice. But I don't think we're inherently, maybe we're not inherently good or bad. You're both. You have both options to live out. But if you're supported and seen and nurtured as a child with, you know, a stable home, whatever that would look like you as a kid just felt like you had a stable place to grow.
So what do you think, like, if someone hasn't had a stable place to grow, how would you find that stable place without that?
In your journey of living here, just like we all do. Like I had to learn my like destructive negative self, just like you would learn your like positive, fulfilled, loving self.
Right.
Learning and unlearning, you know, maybe unlearning what you were around as a kid and relearning what your life could be.
So you could almost use that experience as a mirror to show you this is not where I want to go.
Yes.
And then you can actually see it.
Yes, and I think, you know, whether you feel like you had a great childhood or not, we all look at our parents and see things that could have been done differently.
Sure.
And our kids will look at us and feel the same thing. Right. So I'm not saying it's like you're only going to operate out of a space of love if that's what you were given as a child. Absolutely not. I think, I know so many people in my life that did not have that and are some of the most loving, open, empathetic people. But they probably had to learn that from the mirror since it wasn't in front of them as a kid.
What is something that you have learned about yourself from looking at your shadow?
So much. This whole last year, and you know this, has been my shadow self year. The tower on the tarot, or tarot, however it's pronounced. So much that I don't even, my mind is just bouncing around. Let me think on this for a moment.
Think on it for a moment. We can come back to it. The shadow is it's so interesting because it's like, it's not only dark or negative things. It's like there's your hidden powers under there that are so positive that maybe they were just like shoved down. Like, I mean, in my own journey, looking at my shadow, even this week, something as small as you're in the studio working with people and someone doesn't like something that you like, or maybe it's like manager or whoever it is like, let's not do this and let's cut this part of this is whack, or these lyrics suck or whatever, and it's never just these lyrics suck. It's coming from a place of maybe this could be better. But I found my inner child at times, sometimes cool, that's fine, I can beat this. But then sometimes there's just this nobody understands me. I'm a genius. Whatever it is. And I'm hold on, reel it in. And then why do I feel this way? Why? And then sitting with that in meditation and I'm feeling this because at this point in my life, maybe this thing happened or whatever it is. You pull it back and you're dang, these are just lies. But then we kind of react out of this animal, wounded child impulse. But there's superpowers under there. There's huge superpowers under there.
Or it was truth, but you just took it in a way that rooted into no one understands me.
Yeah, and that's the big point. Is sometimes it's when people tell you the truth, you got to be willing to actually listen
and receive it.
And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. If we're having conversations and dialogue, there will be buttons pushed emotionally if you disagree with someone a lot of times. But it's centering yourself of who am I really? And am I looking at my own reflection in these other people? And we're all looking at each other's reflection. And then okay, I can emotionally detach and be maybe they're right. And maybe they're not.
Right.
But actually centering yourself enough to know the difference.
Yes.
When you're talking about what is good, even trying to define what good is. And I think good is defined as anything that is allowing the progression of somebody, yourself or somebody else. And evil is anything that stops human progression. And then it's if people are mostly inherently good, it's I do believe that. People are mostly good, and of course there are some people who it's clear that they're bent on evil. But it's not the majority. It's
Totally.
You know, 99.9% of human beings are at least trying to do good, you know, in themselves.
Like 99.9% of statistics are made up.
Yeah, it's so true.
We don't know the percentage.
99.9. We don't know the
We don't know the
percentage at all.
percentage.
But,
But I
the
know what you're saying.
it's
Inherently,
it's the vast majority of
in
people.
your understanding,
Yeah.
inherently.
Or at least this is is they're attempting to do good. Now then you have to define what good is, and it's like, well, we might have totally different opinions on what's good, and they might be opposite of each other.
Yes.
They might be
Yes.
the totally opposite thing.
Yes.
Like your good is my evil.
Yes.
And my evil is your, and then so that's when you get like, well, we gotta figure out what's the root of what really makes something good.
But I think that just comes from knowing yourself. Because then when you know yourself more, you know when you're doing something that is like helpful or you're doing something that is like manipulative even,
Yeah.
you know, just taking it back to that. I think it like starts from within. There's not just like some broad thing we're going to discover where like this funnels into good and
Right.
this funnels into bad. I think it's just knowing yourself and knowing, are you being helpful, or like you said, perhaps that one definition, like progressing yourself forward and progressing the people you love around you forward, or maybe even depending on like your job or not even depending on your job, everyone can progress like the whole world forward.
Right.
Or are you stopping that or hindering that?
Yeah, for you.
And we
or
all
anyone.
do it.
Yeah.
We all do it. It's just like a choice of like, what am I, you know, in your day when something pops up and you're faced with the two decisions or the two things to say or the two actions to take. Maybe there's often like more than two, but they'll probably boil down into what is helpful, what is not helpful. And also with that, sometimes what is helpful is what you need to take care of yourself too. Because I think that can also, I'll just speak to part of my shadow self, that being a people pleaser is actually not helpful. Let me say it again. Being a people pleaser is actually not helpful, and I'm learning that because I could like bend and shape and like pretty much like please anyone, like get along with anyone about anything. But then that I'm not really being myself then. And then if I'm not being myself, that's actually not helpful to anybody or to the world as a whole.
Yeah.
And I'm learning that there's a difference between like being kind and being generous and then also not just saying things or doing things because that would please the other person.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is.
Because
That's a very big mirror shadow self-realization I've had in the last year.
I mean, that's what your last song is about.
Yep. But yeah,
Essentially.
right. Talking to I was going to say not the mirror because I did write a song about that.
Yes.
But, which is not out yet. But the people pleaser. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Talking to the good girl that I've been for the last time.
Because it is like, if you are being your authentic self, like that can change the world. Really, one person doing that to the fullest extent, but it's so difficult to do. And and if you're just pleasing people, like you're really not gonna help even the person you're trying to please.
Right.
Or help.
Right.
Dang.
Especially with the people that are closest to you.
Yes.
Because then you're essentially like lying to them. Like, let's say you're in a partnership with a friend or like with a lover. It's like if you are just acting out of like pleasing them, maybe there was something in that moment that like they needed to learn. They needed to see you like disagree and be like, actually, no, I don't feel this way, or like I don't want to do it this way, or to help the both of you in, you know, friendship or whatever context move forward.
Because if you're wrong, or not even wrong, it's
No,
just
it's
like,
like,
if you're not seeing
words are
something,
hard.
Words are hard.
Words are so hard.
But you know what I mean. It's like if your partner or something, you're like, wait, this is how I actually feel. It's like, oh, they just learned something, just like we were talking about earlier. Like, if we're misaligned, it only benefits us to say, you know what? I think you're a little off on this.
You've told me that.
And you've
And
told
I've
me
told you
that.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh. And then I'm like, yo,
It always
thank
hurts
you,
the
Rachel.
worst. It always hurts the worst coming from the people closest to you.
Yeah, but it
it's
also
helpful.
doesn't. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Because you know it's from
in
a
the
place
moment.
of love.
It like stings the most vibrantly.
Yes.
But it is helpful.
Have you had that, like, as it relates to making music? Like, when you really love something and then someone comes in and goes, you know what, I don't really like this or this, and you're just like, ugh.
Oh yeah. My entire, I feel like, relationship with making music and like with Andrew has been me taking him something, being so excited, and him just being like, yeah, blah 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 blah. And every time, still, I have not mastered this yet. I get so upset. We both have similar like roots of like fear of being misunderstood.
We should talk about that.
Yes. Okay. So then I won't forget.
Okay.
So then when it's like in that moment, he's not misunderstanding me. He's actually trying to help me like elevate what I'm trying to communicate because he knows me so well and he knows what I want to do like with my music.
That's beautiful.
It is beautiful, but maybe even the shadow in me still internalizes that, whatever his feedback or like what I take. It's not even criticism, it's just whatever he's saying out of his mouth. If I don't feel like I'm understood by it, it like just snaps me into that place of being like, well, you don't understand me, you don't understand anything I'm doing with my music. I don't even want to talk about it.
You don't know me.
Like, no, that's literally how I feel. And that has been challenging within like a marriage context because you're like, well, we married each other and like our goal is to have this be forever and you don't understand me at all. Who did I marry? I mean, that's how it feels in my body and in my mind. But then I take time away and then I run it through my own filter because sometimes maybe he does have something to say about the music and it's actually not the choice to make for whatever reason.
Sure.
But for the most part, anything that he broadens my horizons on with Little Luna, he's been right. Every single time he's been right.
Well, it's like when someone knows you that well, like especially like in a marriage, it's like, well, no one else knows you as well as Andrew.
Yeah.
Except you.
Yes.
And when someone really knows like the root of what you're getting at, and it's like, especially as artists, like sometimes we'll get like, because we live in the realm of creativity and chaos, and it's like, and someone with a more orderly, you could say masculine brain, because creativity is feminine universally, and order and structure is masculine. And so then when someone is looking at our creations through that type of energy, it's like they can look at, like I have this experience with my managers sometimes too, where it's like, they're looking at it like, I know who you are though. And it's not the same as being married to someone. That's a whole nother level. But like, I know what you're getting at and I know who you are so deeply. And I think if you were to say this or do this, like others might be able to see what's inside out. And it's about getting what's inside out. We got to turn ourselves inside out.
Yes.
But like, it's a blessing to have, but I mean, it is like the movie. But it's such a blessing to have people like that who are willing to like, because it's not easy. The easy thing to do is, yeah, babe, it's great.
Right.
Or like, yeah, Roy, you're awesome.
Yeah.
But like, it's almost like they believe in us so much that they want to see other people know us the way that they know us.
Hey, you know what's really cool? Like your manager and Andrew, for just 2 examples, are not being people pleasers when they tell us those things.
You're so right.
Which is that exact example of like, it would actually not be helpful for him to me. Like, do I want to hear like, you're amazing, this is art, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Sure, because that's just like that part of like my ego. 100%. But it wouldn't be helpful at all.
No.
And it actually wouldn't help.
Not to you, not to the music, not to the people listening to it.
Not to the world. Yeah. Wouldn't
not
be helpful.
to them.
it wouldn't be
Yeah,
helpful
that's
because they'd
huge.
just be saying what I want to say, and then it wouldn't progress like my music or a poem or a yoga flow or whatever it is, like further.
But it's very easy to then take the victim mentality of like, you know, which like I still combat as well. Like, you just don't get me, or you don't understand it, or it's like you flip it back to not what it truly is. Like, and that's why like sitting back and asking like, what's the truth? Well, I was gonna ask you about the fear
Of being misunderstood.
of being misunderstood.
Yep. I haven't traced back yet to my...
What it is.
Yes. And like an acting like psychology, not study, but like method, I guess you could say, that I learned. They talk about how as a kid you, like most humans, have a base human emotion. So like need-based or fear-based. So if that's true, I feel like mine, or one of mine, is, fear of not being... not even fear of being not understood, but fear of being misunderstood, which are the same things, but they're different. They're different.
Yeah, it is different.
Fear of being misunderstood. And I haven't traced it back yet to my childhood. Or like, I haven't had it come to me in a meditation, like where it initially stemmed from.
But how does it show up for you?
Yeah, I mean, well, like creatively, like we already talked about, is one, when I get, let's just call it feedback from someone I love, that it's not even that I can't take criticism. It's not criticism. It's like there's something that they think should be changed within something that I made that makes me feel like they don't understand what I made. It's not that I think they're like, oh, they didn't like it. It's not that. It's like that they didn't understand the story I was trying to tell, or what I made. And then that just like, makes me feel like, well, actually, you know what I think? I just had a connection. I think what it comes back to is then that makes me feel insecure that I can't communicate what I'm trying to communicate, and that feels frustrating to me. So maybe that's something, I have never had that thought before until right now. So maybe that's something from my like youth at some point, where there was a time or many times in which I was trying to communicate something, and I actually, it's not even like a fear of being misunderstood. I just wasn't being a great communicator. Or, you know, maybe I was like communicating, but not being like a great communicator, which I'm still working on.
Well, but it's interesting because we're both very empathetic people. And so oftentimes, like from that, you have these ideas and thoughts and even emotions and things. It's like language can't even describe all the things that go on emotionally and feelings and your thoughts, and like, so it's so difficult like to communicate those things. And I think that's like, it's almost like a spiritual fear in some ways, because it's like, it's like, I mean, I can only look at it from my perspective, but like there was a time when like I felt like I couldn't speak. Like I had so much in my mind and so much in my feeling, but like, especially in high school, like I hardly spoke. And then even after that, like in conversations or at parties or places, like I felt like I just couldn't articulate anything because I was so nervous about either saying the wrong thing or that just like it would be misunderstood. And it is interesting that's like, well, language is difficult. Language is really difficult. And as soon as you start thinking about the words you're going to say in a conversation or even in a song, really, if you're thinking about it too much, it's just blocked.
Yeah.
Like it's like not like when you speak and when you're really speaking truth and flowing, it's like
it's just flowing.
The words just come through you and like the ideas, and you're just kind of like a conduit of vibe.
Truly.
Yeah. So I guess it's like connecting with that. It's interesting you bring up the communication aspect of it, because I hadn't really thought about that much either.
But I hadn't until that just popped into my head right now.
And then what makes it something pop into your head?
Right.
It's like there's an alchemical process that go on when two people are doing their best to tell the truth in a moment. Something happens.
Whoa. Wow.
And then like that's like the beautiful part about like how conversations can save the world, because like you just have a conversation doing your best to tell the truth. You don't know where it's going to go. But then every time two people or more people have a conversation, each one of them is changed. They walk away from the conversation a different person forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which goes back to like, I just feel like there's just no way we're having this life experience to just like hurt each other. Like nothing comes from that. Like you said, like there is definitely like evil. There's evil.
Yeah.
But I don't think our time here on this planet is to be evil. I think it's to be helpful and to learn.
It is, and I think something along that line is like, well, especially right now, like trying to define like what is good. And I think like if you think something is good and you're really for that thing, but if you got to look at like what the fruit of it is. So if you having this opinion on something is making other people, well, even it's just making you feel angry
And hateful.
like that is, if anything you think is good is causing separation, if anything you think is good is causing negative feelings onto yourself and or others, it's not good. It's something else. And we have to be very mindful of that right now in the world of like, it's just like medicine. You could say like, medicine is evil or medicine is bad. You can't say that because it goes from everything from like an Advil to like chamomile tea to like Oxycontin. You know, like there's a range of like, but like, what is it? What are the fruits of that thing for you? And it may be different for somebody else. It probably will be different for somebody else. But we just can't cause the separation that's occurring.
We can, but it would be helpful if we didn't.
It'd be helpful if we didn't. It'd be very helpful if we didn't. And like that's like how you create the highest good.